Hey, everybody. We're back. Marcus and Liz are back.
Live from the broom closet.
We're at the airport, and we found this very cool room, and it's private. Marcus found it.
Yep.
And it's no one is in here. So it's a boardroom for office, whatever, for anybody on a layover.
Yeah.
And we have this massively long wait, 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then we're on the same flight back to, where's our layover?
Not Memphis. We are in Memphis.
We are in Memphis.
Milwaukee,
and then back to Seattle at like 11:30 tonight.
Yes.
So fun times, and back to work tomorrow.
Back to work. We both got middle seats.
Yeah, that's horrible. Like, who does that? Who doesn't change their seat in time?
I know, yeah.
I'm gonna be like a sardine in between two extra large humans, I bet.
Yeah, we both did the same thing. A month and a half ago, we booked our tickets to here, but neither of us took the extra time to choose your seat.
Yeah.
So
we were busy.
Is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're busy making things happen.
Yeah.
So why in the world did we come to Memphis?
For the Southeast Conference.
Oh.
So Kevin Fairburn, Nick Dennelsbeck, Andy Burleson, they put on a conference, and we do, of course, the huge conference. We're going to do it this year in October.
The summit.
Landscape Summit. There's Summit, and then there's this what's called the Southeast Conference. So everybody from Augusta Nation's invited. They could come share ideas. We had some speakers. So you and I were a speaker. Lee and Chuck both spoke. We had Dylan Martin. He was doing the Christmas lights the day before.
Yep.
Yeah, showing everybody how that worked. And it's just an opportunity for everybody to get together, share ideas, and learn from each other.
So it's not put on by Augusta, like corporate Augusta or Mike.
Correct. Yep. It's just Kevin Fairburn. It was their idea. Hey, it's great that we have a summit once a year, but maybe in between that, we could have another thing in which, certain people could come and just get a refresher. Especially it's important after springtime, where everybody has just, the world explodes around you in chaos.
Yes.
So you kind of need time to reflect and to step back and to just meet with everybody. It's refreshing for those who came here.
Yeah. How did you feel about Mike not being there?
Well, his all of his ideas are just so cemented into all of us that spoke that he was here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't you feel that way?
Yeah. He was mentioned by all of us. I think it's important. And he said this to me too. He felt like it was important because the franchisees will always have a concern about their leader or the founder not being there. Like what happens, what happens to them if something happens to him. And he's always told them like everything's in place. Everybody's taken care of. The franchise would continue to go on. Maybe you wouldn't have the visionary thing going so fast,
right?
But you would be okay.
Yeah.
Like I have things in place. And so he said it is good for them to see that they can run events like this and I don't need to be there.
Right.
So, but he wanted to be.
He wanted to be. I think he came to the last year's
one,
but he said, I don't want to talk because I want to let everybody else sort of share. I think it's more important.
He just wanted to come and support and be there.
So and just be selfless.
Yeah, this year he wanted to come, but he's doing the challenge in North Carolina.
Right.
And he's almost to the end.
Yeah.
And I think he's ready to be at the end.
You can tell by the bags under his eyes.
Even on the videos. You couldn't you? Just a couple notches down from normal.
Oh, man. Yeah. It's what people don't realize is after the cameras go off, he's handling, pertinent things at Command Center. He's talking to you and Lee and the software developers. And we're getting this new AI agent that's taking phone calls. It's developing that. He has so many things on his plate other than just that.
Yeah.
That it's way overload, and most people would crumble under those circumstances.
100%.
But he's been crushing it.
So why do you think they asked you to speak?
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked when Kevin asked me to speak. I know when everybody comes to training, franchise training, they're able to see, kind of the operation. They go to Command Center. They come to, I was at the Bellingham shop. I had worked there a couple of years, so I was the general manager. So most people were able to meet me and see me, and I was able to explain, here's how I sort of run this location. So it could have been that just running that big location, and then the experience I have now, completely starting from scratch in my own locations, kind of the whole overall picture. And just to bring some of that is what I tried to do in my presentation. But specifically, Kevin asked me to talk about tips for efficiency because that's what it's all about. So
what was kind of the layout of how you put your speech together? Use slides, or did you
It was
just
slides.
more inspirational, or
It was a presentation. Yeah, I try to make it more inspirational towards the end. I try to, it went pretty down, and then I try to build it back up towards the end emotionally. But yeah, just for efficiency, it was more about just the overall big picture, trying to get organized and just taking a step back brings chaos. But it's so important to take a step back, prioritize, execute, and then just move on. And then also to make time to know your KPIs, do your coaching calls, educate yourself, because that's really what's going to move your business forward towards the end. But how would you say, I want to ask you too, your presentation, what was kind of your mindset? What did you want to convey?
Well, I was surprised that they asked me to. I don't feel worthy to get up and talk in front of people or whatever.
You've done it so many times.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not a speaker. I've just been uncomfortable at Augusta, put in uncomfortable situations. So I've grown exponentially, right?
Would you say you're uncomfortable up there?
Not once I get started.
Yeah.
But I'm always nervous before. I mean, at the beginning, my hand was shaking so bad I could hardly.
Yeah. That's why going into my presentation, I started with a joke and something to hopefully just make people laugh.
Yeah.
Because I knew hopefully that would kind of clear some of my anxiety, so I could focus on the things I need to focus on. It's hard to get up there, have your slides, everything's ready to go, and then just go into a concept that's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
You don't know where to start.
Yeah. So, I would be better. I'm more of an inspirational person, so I would be better speaking that way.
Yeah.
But I knew mine was going to be structured.
Yep.
Very detailed, and I know that if you can't keep people's attention, it makes it really hard.
Right.
But I knew also that every single thing I had in there was depth and important. And so even when I was at home, I timed it because I was like, I got to cut this down.
Right.
And I was like, but they need all this. And then I had text on our leadership chat, and I said, man, to Lee and Chuck, and you're on there too, our Memphis chat. And I said, well, you guys, my speech is like an hour and 24 minutes. What are yours, you guys? And they're like 45 minutes, 30 minutes.
Chuck was like, 20 minutes.
Did you time his?
No, I think it was longer than that.
I think it was too.
I think it was about 30.
Because I said the same thing to both of them that they had ended up saying to me, and Lee was very kind. He's like, you could talk for 5 hours and I'd still be taking notes.
And that's true.
And I'm like, okay.
It's very, to start with yours, I think was a good idea because yours is very actionable. Lee and myself and Chuck, we talked about, developing team culture, which isn't very black and white.
Yes.
Whereas yours was, here's a franchisee, here's command center, here's how we could communicate more effectively, here's what automations look like.
Yeah.
And dialing it in from there, making it very actionable and very on paper. If you do get this wrong, here's how to fix your automation.
Yeah.
So that was very valuable. I think that was really good to start with that.
Yeah.
Once you got to the automation slide, you stop for a second and you're like, I love automation. They're so beautiful.
They're such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, they are. They seriously are.
And so I was nervous to do it. And one reason is I feel like when anybody speaks that they should have high value for their audience.
Right.
And to think of the sacrifice that Chuck or that Kevin and them did to put it on, sacrifice of love, money, effort, the thought that goes into it. And then all the people that come, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for the hotel and the travel, and they're just looking for a time to get away and to be refreshed and all that. And so that's why I would feel unworthy.
Right.
Maybe unworthy isn't the right word, but very conscious of how valuable it is to them and wanting to bring value.
Yep.
And so I spent a ton of time to make it very concise and as good as I could.
Yeah. But even then, I think, just our franchise community, you onboard all of them. So, every single person, their names and their family and everything. So I feel like we're a little bit more comfortable talking to those people, but also you maybe feel more pressure because I've explained so many things to these people, but I also need to provide them even more value. So what exactly do I need to focus on? Because I love these people so much. I don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah. And even to prepare, I met with every single department. And I said, if you were talking to the franchisees and explaining what your department does and wishing that they would do this different, or if you were educating them, what would you like them to know? I talked to every department. So I got all of their feedback to even put this thing together over the last month.
Yeah.
And then in regards to being prepared and being ready, I pre-recorded it and then took stuff out, put more in.
Jaden, Eli, Brian were
Oh,
in there.
oh yeah, and I videoed my people talking about a
Yeah.
few different of the topics. I felt like they'd bring good value. I played a song of Mike's that he had at the summit,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
just a lot of little angles to try to break it up a little bit,
Yes. Yeah.
so it wouldn't be so monotonous.
How would you grade yourself?
An A minus,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say that's right.
Yeah.
You're it seemed like you knew that those two TVs were going to be there and they were going to be that size, because I think my presentation, some of the text was so small.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting in the back of the room, I don't know if they could see some of the stuff that was on my presentation. Whereas you, it was yellow screen and then black lettering.
Yeah.
Yellow for Augusta, but also that's like so easy to see. That's why construction's yellow and black.
I was really impressed with how you put yours together. Did you use Canva?
No, I just used Google Slides.
Well, they have all the colors and stuff in there. I've never used Google Slides. It's very nice.
Well, it's got like a template on there.
Oh.
It was very basic. It wasn't anything special.
I thought it was great. I thought your picture was great of your packet that you have for new hires.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty neat. What is in that?
The new hire packet?
Yeah, it looked like a little workbook.
The onboarding document.
Yeah.
Yep. So that little workbook was the P4P field notes. So you've seen that little book. I think Zach at the media team created that. Just little things for them to know on P4P and how it works, because it's a new concept to them. There's a whole document on P4P. I titled it 10 Steps of the Game. So they know, it's only fair for them to know how it works and how everything's calculated. So it's on there. Non-P4P bonuses is in there. So if you stay 90 days, you give them a certain amount of bonus, profit sharing and how that works, and the percentage that they get, and what quarters do they get that certain bonus, and all that's in there so they could see everything. They keep the packet, they take it with them. There's also like the overview at the very end to say, hey, here's a rundown of everything we just talked about. Did a manager go over it with you? Yes. Okay, you sign down here, you date. And yeah, that's something Mike, towards the end of my tenure at the Bellingham shop, he said, that's something we need to put in there, because if we fire somebody, we need to make sure, they sign it, and we went through these things with them in case they contest it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's signed and dated. And then even on that page is a big black or a big white square in which you could put their driver's license in it and scan it in your computer.
Sweet. So you had like a normal folder, and their credit card was in the bottom little hook things. And then on the other side, you got them business cards.
Business cards. Everything they need. Yeah. I mean, there's a title page on there. It goes over, at the very top, it shows we're the franchise 500 and we're growing. So it's a business you want to be a part of. There's max animations to make it fun on there. There's the objective, and then there's a mission down there to change the level of professionalism in the landscaping industry. So that's the first thing they see when they open it up. And something Lee and Chuck talked about, when you're onboarding somebody, don't be the employer that's just like, okay, get in the truck. If you don't know how to do this, well, you're going to know today. Yeah. It's just like, hey, we care about you. We're franchised.
Make you feel valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good first impression, which is everything, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I did find it rather interesting that Lee has had to work on his softer side over the last several months.
And Chuck. Did you see Chuck's presentation? Yeah.
Lee talked about love, everybody.
At the very end.
Fires of love.
At the very end, he talked about.
It was awesome. He wrote an essay as if he was talking about Augusta.
Yeah.
And I told him, well, it's good that you wrote it that way. Otherwise, it would sound like some sort of cult, because he was saying how much he loved Augusta and all these things about how great it was and being a part of it. It was just perfect the way he put it together.
Yeah. Chuck and Lee are wired very similarly, in which they have a task list. They're going to get it done whether the employee wants to or not. I
can't see them doing those speeches a year ago.
Yeah, I know, right? I talked with Ryan Payne a little bit, and he's like, yeah, Chuck, you see Chuck's presentation? He had a little softer side to him. Like on Mother's Day, he gives his employees $50 if they have families. Can you
believe that?
I didn't. Yeah, I wrote that down. I was like, that's a pretty good idea.
It's a good idea.
That goes such a long way.
Yeah, he's always sees things black and white.
Genius.
And when we first started working together, he's like, well, you're going to have to be the other side of me, because I have a really hard time being that. And I'm like, well, I agree with you on everything, but there's no way I'm going to be able to get by with saying it like that. Right. So he's like, well, maybe we'll help each other. So it's been great. Yeah. I just love the changes I see in them, but I know it's like a lot of hard knocks that bring that out of people.
Yeah.
So that's one advantage you have. I think that you learned a lot of relationship capital and experienced all that really young.
Right. Yeah.
So,
It's an infinite game, isn't it?
It is.
Simon Sinek. That's a book of his.
Yeah.
There's no perfect, but I think it says it in the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, where in order to form a more perfect union, there's never like a period after the perfect.
yeah.
It's a more perfect constantly. So
I don't know if it was you that said there's no top, or Lee
Right.
mentioned the infinite game too.
yeah, there's no
There's no
ceiling.
mountaintop.
Yeah, exactly. Ceiling, mountaintop, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So you talked about a lot of different books yesterday.
yes.
So what are your personal, like, how do you structure your life and structure your schedule to make sure that you get all that kind of content? Maybe name the books.
I have a huge benefit and a huge advantage. You've read so many more books than me, but I'm closing.
Maybe.
I'm closing that
You're
gap.
closing the gap.
I'm closing the gap because I'm out in the field and I'm doing mowing and I'm doing string
Yeah.
trimming and bush trimming. You guys are in the office. You need to be attentive to what's going on
To
in
the
your
peeps,
computer.
yeah.
I could put in something that's mindless and listen to something.
Yeah. So that is the
That-
benefit of doing
That's
what
a
you're doing.
huge advantage. Yeah, I just listened to Steve Jobs again by Walter Isaacson.
Yeah.
I mentioned that one. I mentioned It Takes What It Takes.
Which makes me want to go listen to it again.
Yeah, that's by Trevor Moawad. And then he wrote a second one. He was in the middle of writing a second one, then he died. But they finished that, him and like Russell Wilson, and see it's
Oh,
pretty cool.
I think I heard that one.
Yeah, I forgot what that one was called.
Because they end up
Getting
talking
to
about you.
Neutral. Getting to Neutral is what
Maybe.
it's called.
Okay.
There's so many, Mike Michalowicz is a good author. I talked about, what else did I talk about? Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. That's one of Brandon Turner. It is his favorite book.
It is his,
So that's
when he wrote that, read that?
when?
Yeah. He was on
What?
an airplane. He read the whole book on the plane and rewrote his whole company's, he wrote his company's
Wow.
Vivid Vision on that plane.
On a plane. Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's really cool.
So that's one book that can, change you.
Absolutely.
Pivot. He
Yeah.
pivoted on that plane.
If you know what you're moving toward, it, like you and Mike, again, I talk about things that just don't register on your radar anymore. You
Mhm.
could fire somebody and still execute, not feel any emotional attachment to it. You can just
Mhm.
move on so quickly.
And that seems so mean and heartless.
It does on surface level, but if you think about it, you're like, okay, I'm thinking about 10 years from now. You put yourself 10 years from now and you think, am I even going to remember that employee or that instance where I crashed the truck or whatever it might
Right.
be?
Yeah.
No, probably
No.
not. So why even get wrapped up in this?
Yeah.
So you've had so many experiences where it just doesn't even register on your radar. That's for the people and what we're trying to convey to these franchisees just maybe starting out.
Yeah.
That's a huge benefit of just doing it.
Yeah. What did some of them take away? Did anybody talk to you after?
Yeah, there's a decent amount that talked to me. At the very end of the slide, I offered I'll share my presentation with you if you want a copy of it, and then
Oh,
the
cool.
onboarding and the manager packet, and then my list of my favorite books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the people that came and talked to me, they say just kind of stop, take a deep breath of fresh air, prioritize and execute. That was the biggest thing I think they took
Cool.
away. There's a couple things I'll have to go watch it back, but I think I'll critique myself. There's a couple things I think what's the word for it when you say something? It's contradict.
Yourself, contradict yourself.
I'll do a little bit. So at first I read the quote by David Goggins, and then later I sort of contradicted what I said. So many people are focused on efficiency, getting the best for themselves. And then later in the slide, I talked about specifically efficiency. So it's kind of like, it contradicts a little bit, but
it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. I think that, so let's say somebody doesn't really know you very well.
Yeah.
But by watching you and your presentation, what do you think that they learned about you or could observe about you that they didn't know before?
Maybe to not take things so serious. I try to mix in a lot of like humor,
No, but I mean like what they could observe about you. So you could hear somebody talk and they could not say anything personal or anything about themselves, but you would still glean something about them. So for instance, if you talked to Mike or didn't talk to Mike, but watched all he was doing or whatever, you would pick up that he's very giving, works very hard.
Right.
You would pull those things out, but I'll just tell you. So by watching you, I would say, if I didn't know you at all or anything, wow, that guy's well-read.
Mm-hmm.
He has a great memory for the authors and the books and quotes that you read.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And not everybody has that. So like I have read 1,000 books and I don't remember who wrote them all.
because you listen at 2.5%.
Probably.
No, I'm kidding. But
I listen to Jocko at 2.5 because he talks
he's so slow.
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah, so I would say those about you. And
Cool.
then I would think the term wisdom beyond your years comes to mind too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I give myself a B- on that.
Yeah, because you think you contradicted yourself.
That, and yeah, I don't think I was in the right frame of mind. I haven't got a full night's sleep in probably a month.
Yeah, and you've been injured, and you have people quitting on you.
Yeah, less that. It's just, you make excuses. Oh, I didn't get enough sleep, but that's because I didn't make time for myself to get enough sleep. So take ownership.
Oh yeah, we could go to ownership on and on and on, couldn't we?
Yeah, we
take
could.
on the whole world's problems.
Right. But I want to ask you, as far as books you've read recently that's been beneficial, especially in now taking those thoughts and writing them in your own book on paper, what sort of things are you trying to focus on?
Well, I don't really listen to any of the stuff like your relationship and, how to get more sleep. It's more, I want all the in-depth stuff. Like Andrew Huberman, he has a podcast.
Huberman Show.
Very in-depth on health.
Yeah.
So if I was going to listen to anything on health, it would be that.
Right.
Lewis Howes, I used to be like 100% into that, listen to hundreds of those.
Yeah, it's the Millennial Investor or something.
No,
podcast.
He is the School of Greatness.
Oh yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah, and so I don't listen to I do listen to the ones that look interesting or might have some depth to him, like he interviewed Alex Hormozy. So then I'll listen to that.
Yeah.
Or like he interviewed his girlfriend, which is pretty crazy, and it was interesting
Layla?
Hearing about her. No, not Alex and Layla. They're married, but I mean,
Lewis
Howes has a girlfriend now, and he's had a rough time with relationships for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's with this girl, and so she's an actress, I guess. So he interviewed her. So that was kind of neat. But a lot of the fluffier stuff, I don't listen to anymore. I feel like I finally got into a place. It's just like all Mike listens to is higher level stuff now, and I'm getting a little more there, so I don't have to listen to so many of the things I had to before, which I'm grateful. I can move on.
Yeah, like you have the discipline so that the engine is sort of running by itself, so you don't have to go back and listen to something that's motivational.
Yeah, I don't have to motivate myself anymore, so that's a good way to put it. So things that I've been listening to are very in-depth and almost horribly boring. Yeah. And so like I'm listening to one right now called Deduct It All or Deduct Everything.
Yeah.
And it is in the weeds accounting stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll listen to
well, I mean, when you're starting Command Center, it's these books about how to build and operate a call center. Like I can't imagine how boring that was.
Yeah,
but
and
how
working
also
with virtual teams and all of those
but
things.
Also how useful it must have been, because like you need to know the structure, even how boring it is.
Yeah. And you want to listen to books about Google and Amazon, because if you're thinking big vision, you're going to think, oh, I'm going to have that many employees. I'm going to be running that many departments.
Right.
And I better not get overwhelmed about one department.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have thousands of employees.
Yeah.
So if you start to think like that, it changes every single task you do.
I remember, I mean, I didn't hardly spend any time at Command Center throughout my years, just because it was a very in tandem relationship, even though we weren't together in the same room. But I remember starting and coming and kind of see the Command Center. Okay, there's a couple desks. And then towards the end, we're full on these two offices, and all the other people in those office buildings are mad at us because we're taking up all the parking spots. And in there, I was looking on the board and see like a spider web of departments. This is where this goes, and here's who's doing this. I was like, whoa. How much trial and error is just right in front of me to get to this place.
And then we fail, and it's like, oh, that sure didn't work.
But all these org charts, and here's where things go. It's amazing. It's overwhelming to somebody who's just coming in and seeing that. But for you, and then to have people like Jaden, especially Brian.
Yeah, to put smart people in places.
Yeah.
So my gift is that I can find somebody, I can watch somebody, and I can see what they're good at, and then I can put them in places to just blow it up.
Right.
Like just let them go. So
what would you say Brian's good at? Because from what I saw is that just in terms of like diffusing clients, he had a lot of experience at like different, what is it called?
He was in a call center.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Brian's gift is teaching. Teaching,
really?
Training, coaching.
Did you you must not have realized that until
that.
until you got him in one of those roles.
Yeah. Well, not even got him in one of the roles is I watch them the way they are with others.
Right.
And if they're constantly a person that people can turn to
Mhm.
and ask questions to, and they're always patient and answer,
Mhm.
oh my word, just watching him do training, I would fall over dead having to talk for 8 hours straight, on
Yeah.
these tiny little structured topics.
Right.
I want to just get in and go, right?
Yeah.
And he is gifted. He can do that.
Right.
And he does recognize now I think that's what he was born to do.
His superpower.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
awesome.
a superpower.
I've never seen that in action, so I'm glad.
And Jaden's is a love of numbers and Excel and strategy and figuring things out. And
I think if of anybody at Command Center, I see the most of myself in her in just trying to try to improve upon the process.
Yes.
Like what she did with Google Earth and like the franchise territories.
Yes.
A lot of the calls you get from franchisees are, this guy's in my territory and this lead should go to me and whatever. And she said, now it's very straightforward. There's no confusion. Here's your territory. Here's your service area. Maybe your service area is closer to another person's territory. Here, where if somebody calls this phone number, here's where that lead is going, so that there's no confusion ever again. She came up with that system, and
she did the whole thing.
Those maps on Google Earth, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
So that's
we
amazing.
didn't either. But I remember so my thing is being more in that regard as the entrepreneur when I'm like, this is what I need.
Right.
This is what we need, like to reduce all that fighting and not fighting, but it'd be like kids, like you're in my stuff, get out of my room.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of stuff. And then I'm like, can you fool around with it and try to come up with something? And she did awesome.
Absolutely.
The same with Eli and I, when we did OTP, I knew I had a vision for it. I knew what I wanted it to be. And so I know he's a gamer. So I know if you're a gamer that you can do a lot with your hands.
Right.
And you can do it fast while your mind is doing something else.
Right.
So I told him, this is what I want. I can do all the verbiage really well. And you're really good on this. So let's just start timing it. And you measure this property while I talk.
So you would say that's his superpower. It's not necessarily.
I wouldn't say that's a superpower, but I was going on to what he's already good at.
Right. Okay.
If I would have had to do that, it would have taken me forever because I don't ever sit around and just do stuff with my hands like that anyway. And so it worked great because I was good at the verbiage and he was good at, moving really fast with his hands and measuring while we talked. And so then we timed it and we got it to where, okay, we know we can sell these jobs in 8 to 10 minutes.
Wow. That's cool.
So it's just finding the other people. There's another book. Who's the guy that's the best investor of all time that everybody looks up to?
Ray Dalio.
Him, and then there's the other one, older gentleman.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah. So the book I'm reading now, it's like 17 hours, and it's all about him and his investments. Oh, it's the Benjamin Graham one.
Yes. Okay. It's by Benjamin Graham.
The Intelligent Investor.
Yep. By Benjamin Graham.
And then Warren Buffett considers Benjamin Graham his mentor.
Yes.
So that's the one I'm listening to now. Heavy in the weeds.
Right.
I started listening to it years ago and I'm like, it's too much.
That's what I said. So I haven't got back to it yet.
Yeah. It's just like in times in my life when I've had things happen, like I was raised in a very religious family and we believed in like a really close relationship with God and like feeling the presence of God. And I remember one time it was like so strong. And I remember saying, that's a little bit too much. Can you back off a little bit, God?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with like that. It's like a little too much, not quite ready for this. And so now I'm making myself, and I'm like, if I just get a few nuggets, then I'm good.
So your approach then to listening or reading books is, well, not reading, you don't read books, but listening to them.
Yeah.
Is your approach, I want to ask you this, is when you start listening to a book and it's boring and you don't feel like you're getting a lot from it, how long do you give it before you move on to another book?
I try to do the whole thing.
Really? Even if you're several chapters in, you feel like you didn't really glean a lot of information or it's just not very actionable advice.
Sometimes people get to their last few chapters and they summarize stuff and you're like, hello, I could have skipped the whole book and just listening to this.
Right. Yeah. There's
because some people aren't good writers.
Yeah, right. But some of that really good in content is in those later chapters. So that's why some of these books I just skipped through because the first couple chapters.
Some are too old and they're, especially with technology or a lot of the leadership tactics and all that we use now, stuff with employees and culture, that's a whole different game now. So I won't listen to anything that's very many years old.
Right.
because they don't have anything to say to me that's going to be
Yep.
impertinent to my, like, as much as we love Steve Jobs, I wouldn't go to him for how to run teams or anything like that. Like, he was a dictator. Like,
Right.
he was a jerk. But I wouldn't get by with that.
Right.
And most people now would sue their boss
Yes.
if they spoke to them the way Steve Jobs did.
Back in the day, one of his interview questions was, how many times have you done LSD?
I love that.
It's
But
funny.
now it would be considered personal information
Oh,
and
yeah.
invasion of their privacy.
You'd get attacked if you ever said something like that.
So,
but yes, absolutely. But you know, the little things you glean, like if there's any A players that are working at Apple, A players want to work with A players.
which is why you need to read books like that and
Right.
Elon Musk, so you can catch a little
And
bit of where they're coming
He's
from.
somewhat similar to Steve Jobs and just the dictator and I do not care about your feelings type leadership, which a lot of people don't like, but you know, it does lead to better teams over time.
It makes better teams.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a tough balance, and it's an infinite game. It's impossible.
That's why
to get
they
it
need to
perfect.
be at the top. Entrepreneurs like me catch
Right.
their vision,
Right.
and they're the softer one that make it all happen.
Elon had his Mary Beth Brown.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Is she his COO or something?
She was. I think she's gone
Until she got too much of him.
Yes, and I don't think it ended very good. But in that, at least the Ashley Vance.
Okay,
Walter Isaacson's writing about him, so his book on Elon Musk coming out.
Okay, I'd like to hear that.
I'm excited, but
Steve Jobs was the first book ever in my Audible.
really,
and then Gifted Hands is about a surgeon who would separate babies, like that their brains were attached.
What?
And yeah, cool stuff like that.
Whoa!
It was
What do
those
you
were
mean?
the two books I had.
What do you mean their brains attached?
Benjamin Carson was the doctor. So they'd be like Siamese babies that were attached at the chest, and he had to remove them and try to keep them both alive. And there were babies with their heads, Siamese babies with their heads attached. So can you imagine the intricate surgery that would take? So the name of the book was Gifted Hands. And so he was an incredible surgeon. He tried to run for president once, and he was too good of a man.
Yeah, of course. I thought so. Like people that are conjoined.
Yeah, Siamese.
Is that something you're supposed to do at birth? Is separate them, or is it just?
You should. Some are separated in the womb. They can do surgeries like that now, but there's people that are born like if we were attached at the arm.
Yeah.
Like there are people that share a heart, and they are attached.
So it's not like you can't.
You're attached forever. Your faces are in each other's face, and you're.
I know, but like so it's kind of like a decision that the surgeon makes of, is this going to kill one or the other if we do separate them?
So the parents would have to make that decision, knowing they could lose both babies.
Can you imagine making that decision?
No, it would be horrible. Losing both babies and choosing which baby's going to go. And so then you have to choose the one that probably has the best odds of surviving. So, yeah, that's good. So the books I'm listening to, so then the podcasts have shifted a bit from, I don't really listen to Ed Milet anymore. He's a little bit on the plane with Lewis Howes.
Okay, I don't even.
He's motivational, same kind of thing as Lewis. And I think they're both awesome. I think they're both awesome for the average person, but now I crave so much more.
Right.
So my first million, I've been binging on that.
That is the business equivalent of Bigger Pockets for real estate. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say so. Yeah, because Lee and I have talked
about it. It's a
PG-13,
but it's also the same, you know?
Yeah.
I've started getting into that as well.
Yeah, I'm binge listening now. And what I appreciate is that I don't understand it all.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Right.
So it's getting me in deep water, but that there's parts of it that are like, somebody gets it. Like, this is business. This is how it works. This is how it runs.
Right.
This should be my mentality. You know, you can buy a coffee at Starbucks the way people budget, where they are like counting every little penny. Like, think bigger. You're not planning on only having enough to not buy a coffee at Starbucks. Like, that's not your goal. Your goal is way bigger. That's
the benefit of those like talk shows and podcasts is they develop with time.
Yes.
Whereas book, it stays forever. You don't listen to those older ones.
Yeah.
But those podcasts improve upon the process, and they're more modern and relevant.
Yes, and then you hear them over over and over. I
right.
really like them. They have good synchronicity with each other. And
I really like the structure that David Goggins does in his books. It's kind of like a podcast and a book and like just this talk show.
Is that his? Yes. The second book he did was like that.
Yeah. And the first one is. But
when they interviewed his mom was the best part of the whole book, because it was her voice.
I cried at the end of that.
I think I cried in that story. I was listening to it on a plane.
It's so transparent and oh god, yeah.
That was good. Yeah, he's a very intense guy.
Yeah. But yeah, kind of their structure is they read a chapter of the book and it's live, so it's not something you're going to read by listening to the physical copy.
Yeah.
But it's live. So after a chapter, they'll talk about how this is relevant to today, or how'd you come up with that? Or just little things that like FAQs, people might have questions about the book.
Maybe I should do that I do the Audible version of my book. Just talk at some points.
Or like have you and like Jaden ask, like Jaden is really good at giving feedback. So like whoever reads the chapter and then at the end of the chapter
or talk about
ask questions to you. Hey, what'd you mean by that?
Yeah, that was really a good format.
Yeah, so you can maybe expand on that. I mean, it's a lot more to do in your studio, but
it is. Yeah,
it's up to you.
Yeah, so writing my book has been an awesome experience.
Really?
And I never had any idea to write a book at all. Never desire, nothing.
Really?
But we've read so many, and the more that I read, I realize, okay, nobody writes a book by themselves. Right. They have a ghostwriter. They have somebody who's like intricately involved with them. It's never a one-man show. Very, very rarely.
So are you with like a publishing? How does that work?
So I did it with Amazon Publishing.
Okay.
So if you do that and you pay up front, and then they give you a project manager.
Okay.
So that you're not talking to 12 different people.
Right.
And then my project manager has like 12 people under them. And there's, people that I give them an idea of what I want for a book cover. And then they send me back, like a prototype of, do you like
the
this?
Art on the book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I say, this is what I want.
That's cool.
This is what I want it to say.
So every part of the process,
yes.
not just the proofreading and edits.
Yeah. And I asked for aggressive input. So that means I'm not emotionally attached to parts of it. I'm just go aggressive.
Right.
Like, give me options and you can do aggressive edits. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If you completely change something I'm saying, I'll let you know.
Have they done that thus far?
Yeah. So not at the beginning.
Did they say anything totally sucks?
I felt no. So they came back and they're like, oh, you need more personal references.
Yeah. Okay.
You need them in every single chapter.
Okay.
So I was taking topics of business. If you're a business owner, how do you handle your health, or how do you handle taxes, or like all these different small things. And it's like a chapter on each of those. And so they would say, oh, at the beginning of every chapter, we want you to talk about yourself and we want you to talk about experiences. Well, I'm not real good at that. And so to actually, like, once water's under the bridge, I don't want to relive stuff, and so I don't sit down. Oh, I felt this way then.
Right. I mean,
yeah, you know what I mean? But that's what they want.
Right. And you share, it's very beneficial because you share those stories about like everybody goes through trauma and you've had trauma. And then David Goggins even says like, it's been the hardest thing ever to try to go back to those experiences because I don't want to go back to those
experiences. And you have to think them through in an intricate way.
Yeah.
So I didn't go that deep. I don't think I'm ready to go that deep.
Yeah.
But
second book you will.
Yeah, maybe. And so I've had people ask before for me to share my story. And I'm like, I don't think I'm quite ready to do that. But when I thought of the business book idea, then I thought, okay, I could. Because I could just talk a little bit about stuff with business and myself. Right. And then I could talk more like in depth on the topic.
Absolutely.
So when Chat GPT came out, I was like, there's my ghostwriter. So Chat GPT can be the person who I say, I want this, and I want to talk about this in business. Yeah. Can you tell me with the way I phrase my question? It's like, for example, I could say, this one was great. I was able to ask Chat GPT, intimacy in business. Tell me about intimacy in business. How does intimacy affect in business? And the response was great. I am not a sexual creature.
Yeah.
It was like the response, well, like I can't help you in all of that, but I can tell you this.
Wow.
And so I phrased all my questions to be able to ask ChatGPT to help me. And when I realized, like, everybody has a ghostwriter. Like Mike's first book, he had a ghostwriter.
Right.
When we did P for P, Jaden was kind of that person.
So,
Every single one of us gave input on that book.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So nobody ever sits down, writes a book, and it's done. All of them.
So how much of the edits and proofreading is like ChatGPT versus
they tore apart what they did too. So I had ChatGPT stuff.
Mhm.
So I'd take my personal thing and all my experience, and then I would ask ChatGPT, this is what I want to say on a professional level.
And how do I convey this?
Yes.
Okay.
And it would tell me what to say.
Okay.
And then I gave all of that, say on intimacy or health or whatever, gave all of that to my editors and told them to aggressively edit. So even ChatGPT is getting edited like crazy.
That's cool. So it's your initial draft of everything and your experiences goes in a ChatGPT as a filter. And then after that, you have your second draft and that goes to your agency.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you would never look back and say, oh, this was ChatGPT. You're like, no, this is the book that Liz wrote.
Right.
And so it's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool that people now have.
That's cool.
That they never had before. And you should take advantages of the tools to benefit other people.
That sounds like what they're doing at Khan Academy. Have you seen that engine?
No, what's that?
It uses ChatGPT or like a deep learning kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's specifically for like education and for teachers and students.
Yeah.
So they put in their essay and it gives them more like actionable advice. It's more of like a structure in which to say, here's a run-on sentence, here's why. And here's how that sentence would be better. I forgot what that engine's called. They're coming out with it. Sal Khan is a hero of mine.
Oh, okay.
He just did a TED talk on that.
Yeah, probably everybody knows what you're talking about.
Right. Well, I don't think so.
Right, he says.
I'm trying to think what that's called. Sal Khan, and it's on Khan Academy. They're coming out with it, but that's going to be really beneficial for like teachers and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Khan Academy. I remember doing some classes.
It's completely free. So anybody around the world could have this free education.
KAHN?
Yes.
Khan Academy.
Yeah, correct. There's a Sal Khan actor, and then there's a Sal Khan with Khan Academy.
I remember I got some math stuff off there one time.
Yeah. A lot of my like macroeconomics I learned from him. Because he used to be a hedge fund manager.
What's his name again?
Sal Khan.
Sal Khan. What's his story?
I don't know a specific story, is personal, but yeah, he used to be a big hedge fund manager, I think in like New York. Then he moved to Silicon Valley to try to, I think his mission statement almost is to make education free for anybody everywhere. Kind of get rid of the structured schools, which are more old school and very controlled by the government and stuff. And your education is very black and white as far as what you're available to learn. So he just wants to open it up to everybody and make it free.
Nice.
So it's really cool. And yeah, just even in my business and starting out, like the online MBA and Mike's content's great, but I also listen a lot to Sal Khan for specific in-depth stuff like you're talking about. Like
you'll have to send me a link.
Yeah, like he talks about specifically, how to cost benefit analysis and absolute advantage versus I'm just trying to think, but there's so many different, tools and resources, and he goes over like the Greek debt crisis and how that happened.
Oh man, that would be really cool to hear.
It's basically like him talking, and then on the screen you see him writing. So here's.
Is he a young guy? Asian?
No, he's Indian.
Indian. Okay, so that I haven't seen him.
Of Indian descent. Sure. I don't know if he's from India, but I think he's 45.
Okay, yeah, he's not the person I saw then.
No, there's a Sal Khan that's like a famous Indian actor. But yeah, his stuff's really good and it's free.
So what have you been listening to recently? Podcasts and books.
Well, you talk about Warren Buffett. I just listened back to they do the what's it called every year? Where
they do their investor letters?
Whatever that's called, where he gets all the investors from his company in there.
Yes.
Shareholders conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that online 2021. Charlie Munger wasn't there for it, but it was Warren Buffett getting up and talking about that, and that was really cool. Did they piece
that out on YouTube?
It was all one, but you could just listen to it. You don't have to watch it.
Yeah, okay.
I think I should
hear that.
It was like 2 or 3 hours.
All right, so you just finished that, or that's kind of what you listened to recently?
Yeah, I listened to that recently.
Whose podcast was it on?
It was just somebody took it off of YouTube, and I think recorded it or something.
Okay.
Yeah, you just search on YouTube, 2021 Berkshire Hathaway Shareholders Conference.
Yeah, I'll have to watch
that.
Yeah,
that one's really good.
Listen to it.
He talks about like how America is still like the macro level of it, and how it's still a good idea to invest in America and American companies and how good we have it here. It's good to appreciate. But that, there's so many books. I can't just put my name on one. But starting to get more into podcasts. So like not the Millennial Investor, My First Million.
Yeah.
So starting to listen to that more.
We're gonna have a lot of listeners now after this.
People talk about Joe Rogan. I'm starting to listen to him. It's okay. A
lot of variety on there.
Yeah. Kind of starts to talk about the same stuff. I share a lot of interests with him, like MMA and your personal self and how to optimize that. But otherwise, it's just kind of politics and things. But that's what I've been listening to recently. So
I love it. In books.
Yeah, in books. I'm trying to think what books. Blue Fishing Again by Steve Sims.
Great book.
That's a great book. That was actually free on Audible.
Oh yeah, it's not a very long one.
No, but it's very actionable. And for me, my biggest weakness is analysis paralysis, and he just destroys any thought of analysis paralysis.
Yeah, you just got to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I could not figure out where that book was going with that title.
Yeah, I know, right? What does that mean? But I kind of like, as far as you're trying to convey something to the reader and, only X amount % of what they read is they're going to retain.
Yes.
So you could almost increase that percentage by making it interesting, like you did yesterday in your talk. So like people like Mike Michalowicz, where you read his book and you're like, this is so wacky.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you listen more, So that's a really benefit to Steve Sims books, Mike Michalowicz books, and The Pumpkin Plan and Fix This Next.
The Pumpkin Plan. A book like that.
It's like a crazy, wacky book that, I remember it.
Yes.
It's like an ad campaign. Like
Trevor. P for P.
Yeah. And Trevor Moawad talks about that in his book. It's an ad campaign for your brain.
Yeah.
What's something that you remember? And it's catchy. Like Michael Johnson in the 1986 or 96 Olympics. His ad campaign, amidst all the glamour and the millions of people watching you and the pressure that's on you, he just focused on the fundamentals. It's keep my head down, put my arms, I'm a bullet. That's all he said.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, should we wrap it up for today? Unless you have something profound.
I think so. When's the book going to be released?
I don't think it's going to be too long.
Okay.
I mean, when we're done here today, I have another edit that they've sent me. And what they do is send you chunks at a time.
Right.
So they'll send you the whole format. Do you like this? And then they'll do like the first couple chapters. Like I laid out the size that I wanted it to be. So they try to format it with the way that I said I wanted the size and how many pages. And
are you willing to share the title?
So you can laugh your head off.
No, I liked it.
It's just called Business, people.
Business.
Very simple.
So
and I'm going to be way at the top of the search.
That's SEO for you. You search business.
There
book.
Was no book named Business.
That's why I started laughing, because I was like, I could not believe that. Like,
you didn't
there's
believe
no way.
me, people.
I didn't believe you. I looked around the table. Is she serious? But no, that's genius. If nobody's taken that name, I was like, free.
Not the business. I was thinking the game of business, because I do talk about that in the beginning.
All the other authors probably thought it was gone, so they didn't even look.
Didn't even try.
But so. That's awesome. And then I know you in a video before you had shared who the audience is going to be for, but can you talk about that a little bit more and what people might glean from your book?
Yeah. So when I was younger and I was raising my kids and had my own little business, but didn't understand at all how to run a business.
It's cleaning service.
I had a janitorial business for many years.
I almost didn't even know that.
Yeah. And I did cleanups, like when people would move out, move in, move outs, new construction, residential and commercial. Mm-hmm. And then I opened Naber Home Care. And I did that for an elderly couple, and I took care of them full time, 24 hours a day, and hired caregivers and things. And they had multiple homes, and I traveled with them and all of that. Well, after I did that, then I went to the hospital. So all in the medical field. And then there's a story behind getting to Augusta, but I didn't know anything about business. And anytime I would sit with somebody who did, I'd be a little bit in awe of them. Like, wow, they're so smart, or they got business, they know about business. But I had no clue, like, to even have a conversation with them.
Right.
Like to sit down and be like, what do? You don't want to do that. Right. I know they're doing something pretty cool.
Right.
But I wouldn't even know how to have a conversation with them.
Right. Yeah.
So if you don't understand people like that, wouldn't it be awesome if somebody just handed you something? This is how business people roll.
Right.
This is what makes them tick. And when they're in business and when they own a business, how do they handle an inheritance? How do they handle relationship capital,
Uh-huh.
all of these different things that would be a part of a business. How do you handle employees? What about teams?
Okay.
And so the technical side as well as more the softer side too.
Technical and emotional.
Yeah, all of that is in there, and it's
That's very fitting with the title because it's not one specific aspect of business.
Yeah.
It's just part of business.
It is, and it's not going to be like a revolutionary book or whatever. But when you're done, you probably won't even read it. Like, you know, some like Tim Ferriss's books, he talks about that. You're not going to like just sit and read my whole book. You're going to open it up and you're going to read about so and so. Because I did this whole thing, Tools of Titans, I think it was.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm just going to read about one person. If you start reading about him and you don't like it, go to another one.
Right.
So mine's going to be like, you could be in the bathroom and you're like, I'm
Okay.
reading this one topic.
You had mentioned a coffee table type book.
Yes.
So
you
if
can
you
gift
have
it to somebody.
Yeah. So if you're like, what about taxes specifically? You could scroll into taxes and just listen or read to that.
Yes, exactly.
Are there going to be physical copies or is it audible?
Yeah. So what they do is they put all formats out at the same time. So they don't like to just release one. So it'll be the Kindle,
yeah.
the hardcover, the soft cover, and the Audible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all at the same time. They even do all the marketing with you. They do like a market research, and they tell you how we should market it and which venues we should push it in.
No way.
And the price.
Amazon for you.
It's so cool.
That is awesome.
And to find somebody like that would be so expensive. I paid $1,000 up front.
And you'd have to find like different agencies because I don't think everybody handles all of that.
No clue how I would even do that. That's why I wanted to write a book, just to see. I want to do it.
Yeah.
I just want to see how it works.
That's a whole other industry.
But in everything we do and everything I've learned, we think stuff is so big and impossible to do. And it's just breaking it down into steps.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I could write a book. Oh, no, there's no way you could, but you can.
Can I ask you, are there one or two things in that process or that industry that you've learned that you thought was crazy?
In writing a book?
In writing a book and those teams that manage it for you and the proofreading and how they tell you to market and stuff like that. Is there anything you thought, wow?
I would have thought that you had to deal with the people that were doing your book cover.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to go over to the other department and deal with the editors. And then is there one editor? Are there 10? Right. Like, how do you find them? Well, in this regard, they're picking it for me.
Right.
And I complained about one. I feel so mean, but I just nicely asked, can this person even speak English?
Right.
And he's like, they have a master's degree. How would I find somebody that had a master's degree to edit my book? I'm like, well, their master's degree is a little bit wanting because there was a whole line in the book. In this one paragraph, there was 3 or 4 things. And I'm like, it doesn't even make sense anymore. It's like a rambling sentence with no commas and words that were misplaced. So if I said something like my children, something a part of my healing journey, they put my children healed me. And I told them, does that make sense? No.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, okay. I said that's why it made me think they couldn't speak English well, because it's not that they couldn't speak English, but understand
concepts. They have a master's in English?
That's what they said.
That's hilarious.
So I'm like, he's like, we will get you another editor. Okay. So they found me another editor and they put me on a conference call with the person in charge there and my project manager and this editor. And her name was Sophia. And I said, so Sophia, you're going to get an idea. You can aggressively go for this.
Right.
I said, you're going to read the whole personal parts of me and you're going to get an idea of how I roll. And I said, so just keep it uniform.
Right.
Like, don't give me a different editor. Let Sophia do it. If I approve the beginning of it, let her go for it. Let her do the rest of the book.
Right.
So I got her first edits and I was like, okay, this is good.
Okay.
She's just fixing what I didn't have perfect.
So that's the proofreading part. So the marketing part, is there anything glaringly different?
I don't know yet, because that will be the next thing.
Okay. So, are they giving you like a package of, hey, if, whatever your budget is it going to be like a package where X amount we're going to put on Audible or on Amazon platforms to try to sell it? Or
I'm not sure.
You just
so
haven't
I think when the
that.
book comes out, I'll talk about the rest of the process of how it all went.
And then also the rights of the book, like the revenue that you bring in for the book.
Yeah, and I think Amazon gets a % of that.
Right.
So
of course they do.
They try not to make it. They charged me $1,000 up front. like to even start talking about it.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I think it's then their profit is really in getting a percentage of every sale.
Right. Right.
So it's to their advantage to help me market this well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when they're done,
I'm sure Amazon has that part figured out. Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And so they're basically bringing all of the professionals together for me so I don't have to try to figure out where they are. That would be the hugest takeaway so far and the most impactful thing to me.
Yeah.
But it'll be cool to see, you know, how like, for instance, I have a photo of me that's going to go on the book. But then right away you think, okay, if the photo's pretty big on the book, is the resolution of the photo I'm giving them good enough?
Right.
Even if it's good.
Right.
And so I told him, I'll send you the best one I can resolution wise. And he said, if it's not good enough, we digitize it.
Right.
And they can fix it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, and I want heavy edits on the picture too. And then the color of the book and all that. I just give guidelines of what I want.
Yeah.
And then they would send me a bunch to approve.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that marketing thing.
Yes. And if I could look into the future, I would guess you're going to write multiple books. It might seem far off to you now, or maybe you just don't want to. And I think that's fine. But I think just you will have so much experience and so many things that they could glean from you. And I think over time and like maybe your second, third, fourth books, you'll already have a lot of the pre-energy, the excitement already built up, because they'll see like, okay, Augusta's a massive corporation. You know, people like, I was looking for books for U-Haul, like who started U-Haul, what's their journey? I was actively looking for that.
Yeah.
So being a part of that community, you'll see, there's Mike Andes, and then what about his command center? Who built that? And what does it take to build a command center? So I think even like, financially, if, however it performs the initial book, I think you'll start to get a lot more and more momentum if you do write several books. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't inspired to do it or even feel passionate about it. It's just that I wanted my passion was to see how it rolls.
Right. Absolutely.
Which is kind of fun.
And that's just how you live.
Yeah.
So, and then, the last thing, and the illustration and the title of the book. Also like how the hardcover versus the soft cover, that's interesting, because like I wonder how the soft cover is going to perform versus the hardcover.
Interesting. Most of us, I probably normally wouldn't buy a hardcover of anything.
You're right.
Except like Discipline Equals Freedom, because it's a book that I'm going to put on my coffee table.
Right. So I wonder, since
if I gift it to somebody, I would buy the hardcover.
Right. And then Discipline Equals Freedom is a big flat book physically.
Yes.
Is yours going to be
like with a rough surface? No, mine is going to be 6x9. I wanted it to be like a gift book. So if we took our two phones, it's going to be more like that width-wise.
Okay.
And then not even that, like that.
So it's sort of like, so it's sort of like what they did with, the P4P field guide. It'll kind of be a field guide for all things business.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say?
Except bigger.
Right.
Yeah. Like this by this. It'll be good. And then it'll be a good just coffee table book or a gift book. It's a good stocking stuffer.
Okay.
Yeah. For people that are in business.
And then I wonder, like, are the words going to be on both pages, or are you going to have
pages.
some space in the margins if people want to highlight?
I'm not doing like a bunch of no margins.
No custom.
No, and no photos in this. No illustrations in this one. I do have a talented kid and a talented son-in-law that could make me some amazing ones, but I won't bother them. They're busy.
No? Okay.
But maybe, you never know. So it's not going to be a profound book, but it's just going to be fun. It's fun to do.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Like
to see
I
that
would
come
read
out.
it if one of my friends gave it to me, I would just read it to see like, cool, how did they put this all together?
Right.
Just
That's
to
amazing.
see that.
Yeah. And I like that you're starting by covering everything.
Yeah.
It'll be a good book, a first book of many.
I hope so.
In my mind.
My next vision is really to do a course though.
Okay.
Because when Mike started Landscape Business Course,
right,
he was Googling stuff to help himself.
And he couldn't find it.
Right. Like no matter how he searched, there was nothing that he could buy that would teach him to run a business from nothing.
Right.
And so the lack I see is if you were a business owner and you hired me to be your office person, there's nothing you can give me to say, watch this will help you a lot.
Right. Right.
But if I could do some simple, basic beginners, if I was thrown into an office setting, just like you and I both were, how would I handle this?
Right. Yeah.
And so there needs to be a course that is detailed, not overwhelming though, and covers the basic stuff.
And actionable.
Yes.
Sure.
So whether I have an education or I don't have an education, if I get thrown into an office,
right,
how does it work? What do I need to be aware of? There's stuff you and I didn't learn till you're in the middle of it.
Right.
For instance, putting the for the guys' trailers, they have to have tabs for that.
Right.
To think about something like, okay, so every trailer gets attached to all these different trucks. So that means every truck should have the
Right.
tabs for the trailer in the truck.
So as far as the training on Copilot, is that something you're going to be involved in? Because on our dashboard, the franchise dashboard, you have all these videos on Zuper software, Service Autopilot software. Here's 1, 2, 3, how to use these functions and features.
Yes, so those are made now. So if I was a customer of Copilot right now, I would watch all those videos.
Okay.
So they're there already.
Okay.
As they are creating Copilot, they're doing the videos, which is so smart.
So I wonder then, both to help Copilot and for those people wanting to grow a business, would you do something on Copilot? Because that's specific to service-based industries. Or are you trying to look more overall if you do decide to do that?
It would be overall.
Okay.
Because it would be like whatever CRM I've got. Let's say you're just starting and you don't even have the money for a CRM.
Right.
Your boss doesn't have the money for a CRM.
Right.
What if it's just very simple pen to paper and he's just throwing you in?
Right.
Well, now you're going to be the advocate to, okay, we probably need a CRM.
Sure.
Now this person just told me I probably need one and I shouldn't be doing pen and paper or Excel.
And you could, I think in your course, you could kind of do what Mike does, take pen and paper, you could take time-tested things and then bring new ideas into them.
I think so.
And kind of do this versus this. Write it down on whatever whiteboard or whatever medium you decide to use, and just kind of convey what's better. Here's what I use.
And I thought I'd pull him in too. So do a section on whatever I'm teaching and then pull him in and us talk practicality of something that happened in business and explain it to them working in the office and kind of how it rolls.
Yeah. I think in doing your own course, not only for Mike, I think you'd like the stuff Sal Khan does and how he structures that.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Look
and
into
landscape business course, I should do that course.
Right.
Just to see how that's what I'm doing with the MBA and all these. I'm just finishing a bookkeeping course now.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm mostly doing it to help it command, but also to see how they do course.
Sure. Very nice. Yeah. The way Sal Khan does it, he like explains stuff, videos on a whiteboard or whatever it might be, and then every maybe third, fourth, or fifth episode he mixes in an interview with somebody that pertains to that topic. So there's so many different things you could do, and the more we talk about it, the more overwhelming it sounds, but
so great.
We'll start with your book, and I think people will love it, and I can't wait to read it.
Well, thank you, and thank you for chatting today. It was awesome talking to you.
It was good talking to you.
All right, have a good one. That'll be great. How long was that one? An hour?
Oh wow.